Hello everyone, welcome to this session. I am Sudeshna, Assistant Professor of CSC Department. In this session, I would like to discuss about CPU scheduling algorithms of operating system course. Now we'll see what are the different algorithms. But before, first of all, let's know what is CPU scheduling. Actually, there will be only one CPU, that is one processor will be there, and there will be multiple processes will be there like P1, P2, and P3. Now, all these processors will execute only if they have CPU with them. Now, only one CPU is there, so we can't give this single CPU to all the three processors at a time. So, they should share the process CPU among themselves in some strategy that we should decide who will get the CPU first and who will get the CPU next. So this decision factor is decided by the type of scheduling algorithm. So that is, in CPU scheduling algorithm, we are going to decide in what way you are going to assign this CPU to all the processes. Now, before going in detail about the algorithms, first of all, let's know that this scheduling algorithms will follow a scheme that is preemptive and non-preemptive. So, any algorithm will be either preemptive or non-preemptive or sometimes both. Now, let's see what is preemptive and non-preemptive. Now, if there is a process, imagine P1. Now, it has got the CPU first. Now, it started execution. Now, after some time, it was interrupted in between and it went into waiting state. Now when it is in waiting state, it can't execute anymore. In that case, the CPU will be idle without doing any job. In that case, what this process P1 should do is, it should release the CPU. If it is releasing the CPU, that CPU can be given to another process called as P2, which is waiting for that CPU. Now when this is given to P2, it will start its execution. Means the process P1, without completing its execution, in between it released the CPU and it gave to P2, so that this CPU is utilized and it is not idle. So this release of CPU in between execution is called as preemptive. So some algorithms will be there in which CPU will be released in between. Now next is non-preemptive, that is, when P1 is executing and when interrupt occurs and when it is going to waiting state, in that case the CPU will not be released. So instead of releasing, the P1 will keep the CPU with itself only. So it will not be given to P1. Means it will be waiting and also CPU will be idle. Now after some time when it resumes back, it will continue execution from that particular point. So in this duration, the CPU will be idle without doing any job. So this is called as non-preemptive, means the process will not release the CPU until it completes its execution. That is non-preemptive. Whereas other one which releases in between is called as preemptive. So we are going to see different algorithms and we will also see which is preemptive and which is non-preemptive. Now let's see some factors, that is some criteria that you have to follow for all these algorithms. Now 5 criteria you have to take care for all those algorithms. Now let's see what are those 5 criteria. The first one is CPU utilization. As we have discussed here, your task is to make the CPU always busy doing execution of either this process or this process, but it should not be idle. So CPU utilization should be maximum. Next is throughput. Throughput is defined as the number of tasks done per unit period of time. So number of tasks by some per hour. So you can take any unit here, per hour, per second, whatever it is. So it will measure the number of tasks done per hour. So always this throughput should be more, means you're indirectly you're asking to complete more number of tasks in few minutes or few in limited time. Next is turnaround time. So turnaround time is actually defined like this. Turnaround time is equals to completion time minus arrival time. So we'll be seeing this calculation while discussing the scheduling algorithm. So it is calculated as completion time minus arrival time, means it's execution completion time minus when it came. Next is, and this should be minimum always. Next is waiting time, means how much time it was waiting to get the CPU. So that is calculated as turnaround time minus burst time. So what is turnaround time? Completion time minus arrival time. So in short, how much time it got to get the CPU. And waiting time should also be minimum always. Now next is response time. What is response time mean is the first time when it was asking the CPU and the first time when it get the CPU. That is when it is asking here and when it got for the first time. So the difference between these two is called as response time. Now response time should always be less. So on the whole, if you'll observe all the 5 criteria, so the first two, CPU utilization and throughput, should be more, whereas the remaining 3, that is turnaround time, waiting time and response time, should be less. So let's go to the scheduling algorithms in detail now. The first one we are discussing is first come first serve scheduling, and in short we call it as FCFS, first come first serve. Now for this algorithm, let's see example. Now I took 3 processes P1, P2, P3, and their execution times are 24, 3 and 3. Now remember one thing, execution time is also called as burst time. So most of the time we call it with the term called as burst time, and this execution time is measured in milliseconds all the time. It is measured in milliseconds. Now let's see the scheduling procedure. Now here we have 3 processes along with the burst times. Now to show the sequence of execution, we'll use a chart that is called as Gantt chart. So Gantt chart is basically showing you the sequence of execution. Now we are assuming that all the 3 processes have come at a time. So their arrival times are 0. So what we'll do, we'll see their order, who came first and who came next. So for P1 came first, so what I'll do is in this chart I'll represent like this. From 0 it will start execution and 24 milliseconds it was executing. So till 24 P1 will execute. Now after P1 P2 came and P2's execution time is 3, means 24, from 24 it will execute for 3 more milliseconds, means 24 plus 3, that is 27. Next is P3. P3's execution time is also 3. Now means from 27 plus 3 it is 30. So by the time P3 completes it is 30. Now this is the Gantt chart which is showing you the sequence of execution. Now let's see how to calculate waiting time and turnaround time. This waiting time and turnaround time is calculated like this. Now let's see this waiting time. Now this waiting time of P0 means P1. P1 got the CPU at 0th time, so 0th millisecond. So what we have to do is P1's waiting time is 0. Next is P2's. P2 got the CPU at what time? 24. It was executing from 24. So P2's waiting time is 24. Now similarly, P3's waiting time, that is 27. This is waiting time of all the 3 processes. Now we should calculate the average of this waiting time. So we have to add up all this and we should make division by number of processes that we have. That is we have 0 plus 24 plus 27. So we will get 51 by 3. So what is the value you will get? That is called as average waiting time. Now let's go to the turnaround time. Turnaround time, the formula we have seen is here, completion time minus arrival time. So completion time here is for P1. So it is completion time minus arrival time. So we have assumed that all the 3 came at a time. So arrival time will be 0 for all the 3 processes. Now what is the completion time of P1? It is 24. So it is 24 minus arrival time is 0. So it is 24 only. Next is for P2. Completion time is 27. So it is 27 minus arrival time is 0. So it is 27. Similarly for P3, completion time is 30. So it is 30 minus arrival time is 0, that is 30. Now these are the average turnaround time of each process. Now we should take the average of all these. So add up all this and divide by number of processes, that is 3. So let's add up this. $81 by 3. So whatever the value you get here, that is average turnaround time. So this is first come first scheduling. Now if you'll observe, we are seeing the three processes P1, P2, P3, and we are assuming that all the three came at the same time and we have executed in the order that they came. Now the question is, the problem with this is, now if you'll observe here, P1, all the three came at a time. P1 is executing for 24 milliseconds, whereas P2 and P3 are waiting for only few they need to execute only for 3 milliseconds. To complete just for 3 milliseconds execution, it was waiting for 24 milliseconds. That is, if a shorter process is waiting after a longer process, then it should wait for more number of milliseconds. So that's a drawback. So this drawback is called as convoy effect. So convoy effect means we know generally convoy, when a convoy is going, we are all supposed to wait until that convoy goes. So that same effect is shown here in the processes also. The only one drawback it has, that is all the shorter processes wait for one big process to get off the CPU. So this drawback is called as convoy effect. And we have learned that schemes are two types, preemptive and non-preemptive. Now here if you'll observe, this pre1 was executing continuously without any break in between and without releasing the CPU to other processes. So you can say that this FCFS is non-preemptive. So it is not releasing in between. So that's why it is called as non-preemptive. So this is about first come first serve. Now let's go to the next scheduling algorithm. The next scheduling algorithm is called as shortest job first scheduling. Now let's see what is shortest job first scheduling. Now we are overcoming the drawback of the previous scheduling algorithm, that is convoy effect will be released. Now here we are assuming that, now just let's see the example here. Here we are seeing 4 processes which are along with the burst times like P1, P2, P3, P4, and their burst times are 6, 8, 7, 3. Now here what we have to do is, we are assuming that their arrival times are same. Now they are have arrived at the same time. In that case, let's see how you'll execute one after the other. So according to this algorithm, shortest job first means out of all these 4, whichever is having less minimum execution time will be executed first. So here if and we are assuming that all those 4 came at the same time, so their arrival times is 0. Now let's see how to execute in the Gantt chart. So I'll start from 0 here. Now the shortest one out of all these is P4. So P4 will be executing from 0 to 3. So this is done. Next is P1, which is the next minimum one. So P1 will execute and it is executing for 6 milliseconds. So from 3 it is 6 means totally 9 milliseconds. Next minimum is P3. So P3 will execute for 7 milliseconds, means from 9 it is 7. So it is executing for 16 milliseconds. Next is P2, which is executing for 8 milliseconds, means from 16 it is 8 milliseconds. So 16 plus 8, so it is 24. This is the sequence of execution in the Gantt chart. Now we have to see how to calculate their waiting times and turnaround time. Now let's see how to calculate the waiting time. So just observe the Gantt chart, it will be very clear here. Now here in the Gantt chart, let's calculate the waiting time of each process. So waiting time, how much time it was waiting. Now P1 was waiting for how much time to get the CPU? For 3 milliseconds. So P1's waiting time is 3. Next P2's waiting time. So P2 got the CPU at 16th millisecond. So it means P2's waiting time is 16. Next is P4. P4 got the CPU at 0th millisecond, means P4 waiting time is 0 only. So the P3 are left. Now P3's waiting time is 9. So it got the CPU at 9. So these are the waiting times. Now average will be add up all this and divide by the number of processes, that is 4. Now let's see what is the value when you'll add up all this. 19 plus 9, it is 28 by 4. Now next thing is turnaround time. Now let's see what is turnaround time. This turnaround time, as we have seen, the formula is completion time minus arrival time. So we don't have arrival time, so we are assuming that they all came at the same time. Now let's see how to calculate completion time of all the processes. Now completion time of P1 is what? 9. That is P1 completed at 9th millisecond. So it is 9 minus arrival time is 0. So it is 9. Similarly for P2. P2's completion time is 24. 24 minus arrival time is 0. So it is 24. Next is P3. P3's completion time is 16. So 16 minus 0. It is 16. Next is P4. P4's completion time is 3. So it is 3 minus 0. It is 3. So these are the turnaround times of all these processes. Now let's see how these are, let's see how to calculate the average of these these 4 processes. So add up all this and divide by the number of processes. So what is that? 40, 49 and 52. So 52 by 4. So this will give you average turnaround time. Now if you'll observe, this is overcoming the drawback of previous scheduling algorithm, that is, it is overcoming the convoy effect drawback. And out of all the algorithms that we are discussing, this is considered the best one. So advantage is it is the optimal algorithm. So this is considered as optimal one. So this is shortest job first. And we have to remember one thing, this SJF is actually of two types, means both the schemes are there. This is called as non-preemptive. If you'll observe, the processors are not releasing their CPUs releasing the CPU in between their execution. Now we have another one where it can release the CPU in between its execution, that is preemptive shortest job first scheduling is also there. Now we'll see that example also. Now let's take this example. Now here again I'm trying to discuss this shortest job first with the same set of values for both non-preemptive and preemptive. So we have discussed non-preemptive just now. Let's solve this for this example also. Now let's see what is this. Now we have 4 processes here, and if you observe here, we have given execution times along with the arrival time. So these two are given. So till now we were given only execution times. Now arrival times are also given. It means that at what time they came. So based on this you have to execute. Now let's see how to show this in the Gantt chart. Now this is shown like this. Now processes will start executing from 0th millisecond. So in the Gantt chart, I'll start from 0th millisecond. So it will start from 0, and we have to see who came first. Now if you'll observe their arrival times, at 0th time P1 came. So P1 will start executing, and it is non-preemptive. So it means once it takes the CPU, it will not leave until its execution time. So how much execution time for P1? 7 milliseconds. So from 0 to 7, P1 will only execute without releasing in between. Now till here P1's job is done. Okay, now this we have to remember one point here. One thing is, it has executed from 0 to 7. Imagine that this is 0 and it has executed till 7. Now in between it was not releasing the CPU. Now if you'll observe the arrival times of remaining processes, that is P2, P3, P4. So P2 came at what time? 2, and P3 at 4, P5 at 5. It means that before this P1 completes, the remaining 3 also came. Means you don't have to see the arrival time now. By the time P1 completes, all the remaining 3 came. Now what you have to do is, you have 3 options. Out of those 3, which one you will select for execution? Obviously we select the least one, that is minimum burst time, whichever has, we'll select that. So out of these 3, who is having minimum? P3. So after P1, P3 will execute and its burst time is only 1. So 1 means from 7 it is 1, means 7 plus 1 it is 8. So it is done. Now this is a minimum, so we have executed. The next thing is, you are left out with 2, which is having both are having same execution times. In that case, which one you will execute means, now there is a tie. To break the tie, you have to follow first come first serve. Now which is first come first serve means, you have to take P2. So P2 will execute for 4 more milliseconds, means from 8 it is 4, means 12. And after P2 you have P4. It is executing for 4 milliseconds, means 12 plus 4, 16. So this is how you'll execute using non-preemptive shortest job for scheduling. Now let's calculate the waiting time here. Now here, when you are calculating the waiting time, we should take care of the arrival times. Now let's see how to calculate the waiting time. Now waiting time, just observe. Now when it got the CPU, P1 got the CPU at what time? 0. So it got the CPU at 0, and when it came at 0, means immediately after coming it got the CPU. So P1's waiting time is 0. Next is P2. P2 got the CPU at what time? 8. Okay, so from 8 only it started execution. So P2's waiting time is 8 minus, and when it came to the process system at second millisecond, means 2. It means that, for example, I am saying at 2 o'clock it came and it got the CPU at 8 o'clock. 2 o'clock it came and it got the CPU at 8 o'clock. Means waiting time is 8 minus 2. So it waited for 6 hours. So it is 6. Next is P3. P3's waiting time here 7 minus its arrival time is 4. So it is 3. Next is P4. P4 is 12 minus 5. So it is 7. Now let's take the average of this, that is 9 plus 7, 16 by 4. So this gives you average waiting time. Next is we have to calculate turnaround time. So what is the formula of turnaround time? Completion time minus arrival time. So what is the completion time of P1? From the chart it is 7. So at 7 P1 has completed its execution. So completion time minus its arrival time is how much? 0. So it is 0. So it is 7. Next, for P2, completion time is 12 minus arrival time is 2. It is 10. Next, for P3, completion time is 8 minus arrival time is 4. It is 4. Next, for P4, completion time is 16 and arrival time is 5. It is 11. So take the average of this to calculate the average turnaround time. 15, 25, 32 by 4. That's it. So this is shortest job first, non-preemptive. Now let's see shortest job first, preemptive. Now this is the shortest job first preemptive algorithm, that is the processes will release the CPU in between only. Now let's see how it is done. Now as I told, this is called as SJF preemptive. Now it is also called as shortest remaining time first. In short we call it as SRTF scheduling. Now let's see one example. Same example I'm taking the previous set of values only I'm taking. So you have four processes, arrival times and their execution times. Now let's see the sequence of execution in the Gantt chart. Now we have to be careful with the arrival times of processes while doing this execution. Now let's see how it is done. The first process which came for execution is P1 because its arrival time is 0. Now P1 will start executing, that is 0. Now P1 will execute. As it is preemptive, it may release in between. Now when it will release means, now let's carefully observe. Now at 0 P1 started execution. Now it will execute until the next one comes. The next one came is P2. P2 came at what time? Second millisecond. Now till here P1 was executing, and here P2 came. Now P2's execution time is how much? P2's execution time is 4. Means it needs 4 milliseconds to complete. This P2 needs 4 milliseconds. Whereas from here P1 needs how many milliseconds? Already 1 millisecond is done out of 7. So it needs how many milliseconds? 8 milliseconds. So out of these two, which one is minimum? We have to select. So the minimum is 4. So we'll give the CPU to P2. So from 0 to 2, I'm sorry, it is 0 to 2 means 2 milliseconds over. So 7 minus 2 means 5. So these two, out of these two, the minimum is P2 only. So I'll go with P2. So P1 has executed from 0 to 2 only. From 2, P2 will carry on. P2 will carry on until the next one comes, that is till 4. Now let's see here what is the problem. Now P2 has executed. Now P2 has executed from 2 to 4 means how many milliseconds? 2 milliseconds. That is from 2 to 4. 2 milliseconds over. Now at 4 P3 came. Now P3 wants to execute how many milliseconds? Only 1 millisecond. This is 1. Now P2 wants to execute how many milliseconds? Already 2 is over out of 4. Now it needs to execute 2 more milliseconds. Now out of these two, which one is minimum? P3. So P3 will execute. That is from 4, 1 millisecond means 5. Now at 5 P4 came. So P4 wants to execute how many milliseconds? 4 milliseconds. So we have to see who is asking for minimum. Already P1 has executed, P2 has executed to some extent. Now P4 came. P3 has successfully completed. So we are not worried about P3. So we are worried about these three only. Now let's see the execution times of all these three. Now P4 came and it is asking for 4 milliseconds. P1 already completed 2 milliseconds out of 7. So how much? Left 5. Next P2, 2 completed, and out of 4 means 2 more milliseconds it needs. Now we have to see out of these which one is minimum. So the minimum is what? P2. So I'll give this to P2 for 2 milliseconds, that is for 7, and then I'll give to P4, that is for 4 milliseconds, and then for P1 for 5 milliseconds, that is 16. So this is how you have to execute in using preemptive scheduling. Now let's see how to calculate the waiting time. Waiting time, if you're doing in preemptive, it's a bit, let's see how to calculate the waiting time. Now it's a bit tricky, just try to understand. Now P1 got a CPU at 0, it got the CPU at 0 and its arrival time is also 0. Means when it came at 0, immediately it got the CPU. That's over. So it executed for few milliseconds. Now the next question is plus it didn't complete its execution continuously here, means it completed part of its execution here and it left to the CPU to someone else, means it was waiting for CPU for some more time. So that waiting time we have to calculate, means till 2 it was executing, but after 2 it was waiting, so that time also we have to consider. So again it got the CPU at what time? 11th millisecond. So from 2 to 11 it was not doing any execution, so it is waiting. So we have to calculate this difference also, that is 11 minus 2. So totally it is 9. Now let's see the next one. The next thing is P2. So what is P2 here? P2's waiting time is, now just observe, P2 arrival time is, sorry, waiting, it got the CPU at 2 minus its arrival time is 2. So when it came at 2, immediately it got the CPU. So there is no problem. Now we have to consider its waiting time again. Now it executed till 4th millisecond. After that, it was waiting till 5th millisecond to get the CPU. Means it released at 4 and it got at 5. So this difference also we have to calculate. So that is 5 minus 4. It is equals to 1. Next is P3. P3's waiting time is, now it got the CPU at what? 4th millisecond minus its arrival time is 4. Means and it came at 4th millisecond, immediately it got the CPU. So that's no problem. Plus, now it released the CPU, and if you'll observe the Gantt chart, it is not taking again, means within this duration only it completed its execution. So we need not add up anything. So you can just simply erase it. So it is completely 0. Next is P4. P4 got the CPU at 7th millisecond. So 7 minus its arrival time is what? 5. And if you'll observe, P4 is executing only for this time. It is not taking the CPU again. Means in one shot, it is completing its execution. So it means that we have to calculate this difference only, that is 2. So now the average of these, it is 12 by 4. It gives you average waiting time. Now let's see the turnaround time. So turnaround time formula is completion time minus arrival time. Now let's see, this also a bit tricky. Now let's see how to do this. Completion time. Completion time means you have to see that completely when it completes its task. That is when it has completely executed. That is, we should not take in between values. We have to take it the total completion time. Now let's see how it is done. Now here P1. P1 has completed its execution completely at what? 16th millisecond. So we have to take 16 minus arrival time, that is 0. So that is 16. Similarly, P2's completion time is what? 7. So 7 minus arrival time is what? 2. So it is 5. Next, P3's completion time. So 5 minus arrival time is 4. It is 1. Next, P4's completion time is 11. So 11 minus arrival time is what? 5. So it is 6. Now let's take the average of all these. So it is 12, 28 by 4. So this gives you average turnaround time. So this is shortest job first algorithm, which is preemptive. So we have seen shortest job first, both preemptive, non-preemptive in this video. So in the next video, I'll show you remaining scheduling algorithms.